Broadcasting live. It's America's longest running talk show on computers. It's Computer America, bringing you the biggest names in technology with guest interviews, new products, and your emails. Listen live at computeramerica.com on any device around the world. Email the show at live@computeramerica.com or find us on social media. Be sure to check out our website for contests, giveaways, show notes, live video stream, podcasts, and more. You're listening to Computer America.
Hello and welcome into the Computer America Show. We are the nation's longest running and nationally syndicated radio talk show on computers and technology. Thank you for joining us. I'm your host, Ben Crossman, and everyone out there, I hope that you're doing well and you are ready for today's program. So today on the show, we have a full hour of computer and technology news, a lot to talk about, and it's going to be a lot of fun, a lot of different topics, everything from the most recent PS5 to everything about Zoom. There's a lot about policy and moves that companies are making, but there's also some hardware announcements in there as well. So I think we have at least one story that hits every part of technology, and we're really happy that you could join us. If you want to find out more, computeramerica.com is the best place to go for that. You can find everything, including the show notes for past shows, future shows. You can find articles, reviews, topics. You can find a lot that, if you really want to if you really want to connect with the show, see what it is, keep up to date, the website is the best place. Find us on social media, and of course, check out the podcast. So, with all that being said, everyone, let's go ahead and get started with computer and technology news, brought to you by Computer America. All right, so I think that our first story, though, that we're going to cover is going to be about eBay. And I promise, it gets more interesting. So this is something that I had never heard of eBay doing. This is something that if you had told me, I would have said, wow, why would Yelp do that? But hey, it's not this time. So check this one out. This is a story about how eBay, and the headline reads from NBC News, saying that former eBay employee harassed couple who wrote critical newsletter articles, prosecutors say. So this matter has been taken to court, and it looks like eBay is, eBay's in trouble. There's no other way to put it. So check this one out here. The company allegedly harassed the people behind a newsletter and then offered to help stop the harassment. What a great business tactic. Sounds a lot like, those protection rackets that happen with the mob. So, you wouldn't want anything horrible to happen to your storefront. And if you pay us, we'll make sure it doesn't happen. And if you don't pay us, well, it's going to happen. So, okay, let's see what it is now in the 21st century, saying that 6 former members of eBay's global security team have been charged by the FBI and federal prosecutors in Boston for cyberstalking as part of an effort to stifle the publishers of an online newsletter about the online auction company. Man, pretty crazy. The prosecutors said that the plan was twofold. First, the eBay members allegedly harassed the couple who published the newsletter with online deliveries at all times of the day and night and sent threatening messages. So again, they harassed the couple who published the newsletter with online deliveries at all times of the day and night and sent threatening messages. Then the eBay team would contact the couple so that they could proclaim that eBay noticed the harassment and offered to help them get out of threatening environment eBay itself created. Prosecutors call this the White Knight strategy. I guess being able to look like the White Knight, the knight in shiny armor, saying, "Hey, we'll protect you," and then of course being able to flip the switch and there be no other threat. Yeah, I could see that. So they said that they wanted to rescue, quote unquote, the victims from the very harassment that the defendants and their co-conspirators had themselves created in order to earn the victims' goodwill. So I guess eBay created, again, they had the newsletter. They were critical of eBay. eBay decided to, or at least this group of individuals, I don't know how connected they were with the higher ups. It was, again, their global security team. They decided to harass this couple, and then by protecting the couple, they said, "Hey, maybe they'll think better of us as a company, and they won't be so critical of us." Interesting. They said that they were inspired by the movie Johnny Be Good. Well, Johnny Be Bad in this instance, because that is a very bad and stupid thing to do. All the while, they were hiding behind the internet using burner phones and laptops, overseas email accounts, and prepaid debit cards purchased with cash to try to cover up their crimes and obstruct the police department. This is no joke. Oh my God. They were not kidding by using burner phones and laptops, and man, paying for cash for debit cards and ordering things. They said that they ordered everything from live spiders, a box of roaches, a preserved pig fetus, and a pig mask to a sympathy wreath and book on how to survive the loss of a spouse. These guys, sorry about that. These guys were, man, they weren't joking around. This is awful. Let's see. So they said that the scheme and the employees behind the scheme, check it out. These are the ones who are involved in it. The eBay's former, and I guess all these would be, by now, they're probably former, although it looks like some of them, as of this moment, still work for them. But the employees allegedly involved are the former senior director of safety and security, eBay senior manager of global intelligence, and an intelligence analyst for the company, and another one who worked for eBay as a contractor, and a senior manager of special operations for eBay's global security team, and eBay's former director of global resiliency. That's a lot. Like, don't get me wrong. I know that when it comes to corporate titles, a lot of them are whatever. You know, everyone's a global, everyone is an executive of something, but they were pretty well connected within the organization. And I don't know how they came up with this idea to do this. This is insane. Prosecutors said that a number of the employees drove to the victim's home in Gatwick several times and had planned on breaking into the garage to install a GPS tracking device on their car. What was this newsletter? Was it taking down the company all by itself? Oh my God. The plan was foiled when the victim spotted the group of former eBay employees and contacted the police department. The U.S. Attorney's Office in Boston said that once the employees became aware of the police investigation, they lied to police about the situation and the company's involvement. According to the criminal complaint, the unidentified online newsletter published stories titled "What is Behind Amazon Prime Shipping Delays," and Craigslist finally launches a mobile app worth the wait. So there you go. And again, that was according to the criminal complaint, the unidentified online newsletter published stories titled. There you go. A Google search identifies that the articles were posted on ecommercebytes.com. And yeah, I'm actually pretty curious what that is. But yeah, they said that let's see, one person was arrested Monday morning and will make an initial appearance later today in Manhattan, and another one was arrested on Monday as well. Four of the other employees were previously charged with criminal information that was filed on May 22nd and was unsealed Monday. They will be arraigned at a later date. In addition, there are several unnamed cooperating witnesses in the investigation, according to the document. So they also said that. By the way, an earlier version of this article, they mentioned the CEO of the company, but yeah, he wasn't involved in this at all. A former CEO of the company. But still, when it comes to technology, and a lot of technology is the people behind these companies. We all talk about the Bill Gates. We always talk about the Steve Jobs. We always talk about the Bezos, the Elons, the people behind these companies are what really differentiate one company from another. And I gotta say, this particular one, I don't hear about eBay a lot. I think that eBay is having their own trouble trying to stay relevant. And I guess when it comes to relevancy, they're willing to go to extreme lengths, or at least a couple of the employees that were very high up. Like this wasn't a very small group of people. This was pretty crazy. And yeah, I have no idea what to say. I hope that they get what's coming to them. And yeah, I'm glad that they were able to, withstand all that. I would certainly hate if that were to happen to me. So there you go. So there's that article. And yeah, eBay, don't do that. That's a horrible thing to do. So let's go ahead and continue on here. Our next story that we're going to talk about. Let's talk about. We have a number of stories. Intel. So for those of you who don't know, Intel really hasn't been making too much news lately. The last thing that they had were kind of iterative releases of their processors. Their processors have been stuck on the 14 nanometer architecture for a while now. And, it's when it comes to innovation, I'm sure that they're working hard. Their research and development team, I'm sure, are putting everything that they can into it. But the company, when it comes to releasing products with new features and, things that really grab your attention, Intel has not been doing that. So now here we are. This is one of the first times we're seeing a direct response to their products and how they're changing them to address a couple key concerns. The last time that we really talked about Intel in any depth was about a number of the security flaws that came baked in with the processors. This, for those of you who are out of the loop, there were a number of hacks that could happen with Intel processors. And don't get me wrong, it wasn't a very... it was not a practical kind of hack. You had to get your hands physically on the computer. You had to be almost a PhD to be able to utilize these things. But I think it was like something burn and something ghost or after, something like that. Essentially, Intel was using a trick with the processor to essentially predict what the processor's next job was going to be, and that gave them a speed boost over how they designed their chips, and being able to predict what's happening next. They can kind of put everything in line, and there you go. And turns out that their predictive part of their processor was kind of very, very on the low, on kind of like the lowest level of processing, and someone could connect to the chip and potentially install software that could read the predictive part, and it could read any kind of process. It could, potentially read any application running on the computer. It was a very big security flaw, and really the big problem was it was how the chips were designed. And remember, these are security flaws that are still in existence today. And they're unfixable for probably like the last 10 years worth of processors. So what is the solution to that? That's the question. Obviously, Intel said that they were going to redesign their processor so that that wouldn't be possible. And now we see yet another concrete step on how they're changing their products. Intel is getting ready to launch a new security product that could dramatically reduce opportunities for hijacking, called the Intel Control Flow Enforcement Technology, or Intel SET. The product is designed to protect against the misuse of legitimate code through control flow hijacking attacks. This technique is widely used in large classes of malware, and it's been a challenge to mitigate the problem with software alone. Intel SET will offer CPU-level security capabilities from Intel's upcoming mobile processor, codenamed Tiger Lake, and onwards. So, still on the lakes. There you go. Tiger Lake. As computer security has become more advanced, hackers have become more resourceful and finding ways to bypass protections. Exploiting memory safety is one such way. Return-oriented programming and jump-oriented programming are popular ways to hijack the process of these processors. The attacks can be hard to detect or prevent because the attacker uses existing code running from executable memory in a creative way to change programming behavior. So, if you want to know more about that, here's a picture. So, obviously, Intel SET offers software developers two main ways to help defend against the control flow hijacking malware: indirect branch tracking and shadow stack. Indirect branch tracking delivers indirect branch protection to defend against JOP attack methods, while the shadow stack deliver return addresses protection to help defend against ROP attack method. And again, it's all built into the hardware. So, one little thing that they can do to hopefully stem a number of these malware attacks from happening. Intel says that the product will eventually be available in future desktop and server platforms, but it's already been working with Microsoft to integrate it into Windows 10. Microsoft's upcoming support for Intel SET in Windows 10 will be called Hardware Enforced Stack Protection, and a preview is available already for, obviously, Windows 10 insiders. So there you go. Intel taking security seriously, which is great, for a company like that to have so many security flaws out there. They're now, not just saying security is a software matter. It's, as far as hardware is concerned, don't let the bad guys get a hold of your computer. I mean, it's still good advice. Don't let them get on your computer, but having just a little bit more control over how these things run and having malware protection baked into the processor is going to make everything safer. So as long as it doesn't hinder performance and as long as it works intuitively very well, IT professionals can kind of set this up and it's good to go, then if it were built into the hardware, that's a really, really good thing. So there you go. Intel SET. So that's story number 2. Story number 3, and hey, sorry to be hard on Intel, but it is what it is. So I think our next one that we're going to talk about, over the weekend, if you haven't heard, actually it wasn't even over the weekend, it was like last week, although we've been seeing more and more of like a virtual E3 kind of deal. There have been a lot of video games announced, and last week the PlayStation 5 was revealed. There you go. And they said that the PlayStation 5, the dashboard, will have a whole new visual language. And that headline caught my attention because I'm not good at learning new languages. I've proven that time and time again. And I'm interested to see what PlayStation actually has, in mind. So here we go. They said that the PlayStation 5 was finally unveiled last week, and whatever you make of the design, we can probably agree that it's something of a departure from the console's previous iterations. And if you haven't seen it, a lot of people have jokingly been saying that it looks a lot like it looks like a router. I mean, it does look stylish. It looks very technology heavy. You know, some of the older PlayStations, like even the PlayStation 4, PlayStation 1, they've been very boxy. They've been very industrial. Nothing wrong with that. This one seems to be more technology design focused, and it doesn't look bad, which is obviously the opposite direction that Xbox took with their design, which is literally a giant box. You know, at the end of the day, as long as it runs and as long as it runs well, I think people are going to be much happier with either one. Both of them are designed for cooling in mind. So as long as it runs well and it runs cool and it's not too loud, I mean, the design really doesn't matter at the end of the day. So they said that the new interface was always on the cards, something that was confirmed last week after we were given a quick demonstration, and this, of course, article coming from Engadget. They said that the team created a 100% overhaul of the PS4 UI in some very different new concepts. He said that PS5 OS is more subtle than flashy, but no pixel is untouched, and that the UI, it's practically first, but it's a whole new visual language and a complete re-architecturing of the user interface. No word yet on when we'll get a proper look, but it certainly seems like PS5 has more surprises in store, and it certainly does. So, yep, and the only thing that they kind of released was a little explosion of glitter and a little Twitter video. So I'm interested. I think that user interfaces when it comes to consoles have gotten really kludgy. They in particular Microsoft with their Xbox UI borrowed a lot from Windows 8 and 8.1 in the mobile design. It's very ad oriented. You know, it's designed to seamlessly get ads to you while still having information at your fingertips, which isn't the worst thing in the world, but at the same time, you already paid, hundreds of dollars for this thing, and now it's a little ad machine. I'm not the biggest fan. So hopefully this new UI that they give you, ads are here to stay. There's no way around it. I just hope that they are, kind of not the purpose of the redesign, I guess, is what I'm getting at. So, PlayStation 5, we'll see more of it, but honestly, PlayStation 5, especially with the games and what it is that they showed off, I'm always a huge Xbox fan. I'll probably still get an Xbox, but man, PlayStation 4, PlayStation 5, they've been hitting it out of the park, and it would honestly probably be the one that I recommend to other people. So, good job, PlayStation. Our next story, going from video games to something a little less fun, but still pretty interesting. This was the big story of the day, and it has to do with Zoom video meetings. It should be no surprise, Zoom video meetings, they're very, very popular, and they're used by all kinds of people all around the world. Now, here we have a story coming to us from NPR.org saying that Zoom acknowledges its suspended activist accounts at China's request. So, yeah, there's that. This came out a couple days ago, but hey, worth going over again. And by the way, it was they confirmed reports that came out on Thursday saying China had notified it in late May and early June of 4 public gatherings hosted on the platform. And according to the Post, China asserted the activities were illegal and requested the events and host accounts be terminated. They said it determined a majority of the participants in 3 of the events came from China and shut them down. The host accounts for gatherings were then suspended. So the event still happened. Everything still happened. It's just after the fact, a number of them were deleted. I don't know if I feel better or worse that they were able to actually get their event done, but I gotta say, it comes at no surprise. China and censorship go hand in hand. You can't have one without the other. and it happens all the time. Zoom, even though it's been media's darling and it has seen explosive growth over the course of the coronavirus pandemic, as people have been needing a way to hold classrooms and companies and religious services, and I've even seen law enforcement use it, and so on and so forth. Zoom has been everywhere, but at its core, you still have the same problem that you get when you talk about Huawei or you talk about any other company that originates in China, is that it is a Chinese company. And they've done a lot of improvement when it comes to where it hosts the data, how to keep people from dropping in, things like that. But still, Zoom is a Chinese company, and you know for sure that they are going to bend to the Chinese government's will. I wouldn't suspect them to ever go against that, especially if they want to stay viable as a company. So they have a statement here, quote, Zoom does not currently have the ability to remove specific participants from a meeting or block participants from a certain country from joining a meeting, the company said. Although, you know that second one in particular, saying that being able to block people from a certain country, you know that's coming. So, to prevent something like this from happening again. So none of the three accounts, two belonging to US-based activists and a third to a Hong Kong activist, were based in mainland China. That, I guess, is the real stickler. Yes, it's a Chinese company. Yes, it's the Chinese government, but still, they were non-Chinese citizens who got banned for hosting these events. The company said it would no longer block accounts outside of mainland China at Beijing's request, but did not say outright how it would handle such requests that affect users within mainland China. And obviously Zoom said it would develop technology to block users based on geography. So like I said, I knew it was coming. They're working on that. My assumption is that they're going to submit whatever information is associated with the Zoom account to the Chinese government, and then they're going to block, delete, or restrict the account in some way if it's from mainland China. Otherwise, right now, they're just going to delete the accounts. He said that, quote, and Zoom said, quote, this will enable us to comply with requests from local authorities when they determine activity on our platform is illegal within their borders. However, we also will be able to protect these conversations from participants outside of those borders where the activity is allowed. Thursday's acknowledgement also drew the attention of U.S. lawmakers, and they also mentioned that they sent a letter to the company's CEO, Mr. Eric Yuan. In the letter, they asked which Chinese laws mandated that the companies suspend the accounts of U.S. citizens based on the conversation. And they said that the senators also wanted to know why the company terminated the accounts of a labor leader who is based in Hong Kong. Lawmakers called these suspensions deeply concerning. Essentially, lawmakers are concerned, how is it that the Chinese, your company has admitted that it did so at the request of the Chinese government because some of the participants resided inside the People's Republic of China. Zoom's millions of daily users across the world who support the demand for basic freedoms deserve answers. There you go. So they have one more quote here at the end saying, if you said that, you follow the law of a country, but that country suppresses free speech. Which side are you on? Free speech or suppression of free speech? And there you go. Once again, the dichotomy of U.S.-Chinese relations rears its ugly head. And when it comes to software that we use every single day, I know that Zoom has been just incredibly popular and getting all the more popular as this pandemic drags on. If you're concerned about privacy, I think that Zoom, my honest opinion, is that Zoom is on the up and up. maybe not when they first started. Maybe they cut a lot of corners that let the Chinese government into call logs and their data and things like that. But over time, they have been addressing concerns as they pop up. The problem is, being from China, it's going to be a game of whack-a-mole. They're going to continuously be on the defensive, especially in countries such as America or the EU that have stricter, or at least more laws protecting free speech and, of course, the right to assembly and things like that. So Zoom's in a tough place. They can't go against the Chinese government because that is the country of origin, but they're much bigger than just China now. They have millions of users all over the world that need to be addressed. So there you go. Story number 4. Story number 5, though. Story number 5. Let's talk about this one. I meant to talk about it Monday, but we just didn't get to it, and I really wanted to. And perfect. So story number 5 has to do with... let me open up all these here real quick. Yeah, perfect. So story number 5 has to do with the Internet Archive has ended its emergency library. And I mean, I'm not that sad about it because really this was expected. It really was. The Internet Emergency Library was never meant to be kind of an ongoing thing. It was due to coronavirus. Unfortunately, they ended it early, but they had to. So for those of you who didn't know, the Internet Archive, it's a great place to, hey, if you want to see what a website looked like, let's say you want to see what YouTube looked like when it first launched, you can do that. It has archives, backups, images, articles. It does its best to archive tweets and social media posts and things like that. It is essentially the internet's backup. And one thing that they were able to do, of all the backed up information, one thing that they also backed up were ebooks. Be they science books, be they textbooks, be whatever it is that the book may be. And because people were not able to go to libraries, many states' libraries here in the United States actually shut down. And we're all stuck at home. A lot of us can't, unfortunately, return to work. There's a lot of downtime. There's a lot of boredom. And one thing that the Internet Archive proposed was that instead of letting this moment go to waste, instead of everyone sitting around doing nothing for the next couple of months, and let's face it, we're still looking at another 6, 8, 12 months of this whole thing. Instead of sitting around, doing nothing, let's go ahead and learn some skills by releasing these books. They said that, now here we are. After 4 commercial publishers filed a lawsuit earlier this month, the Internet Archive ended its National Emergency Library Program. And they said that the organization said in a blog post, it opened the emergency program in March, providing free access to 1.4 million books for people unable to get to classrooms or libraries during the coronavirus pandemic. They said it's part of the Open Libraries Initiative, in which the Internet Archive scans libraries' books, allowing digital checkouts via a waiting list. But the emergency library did away with the waiting list and made the scanned books immediately available. Obviously, I don't know how big of an issue this is. From a consumer standpoint, it makes all the sense in the world. We are artificially restricting digital content because these publishers think that, hey, if anyone can go to the digital library and they can check out our digital book at any time, there will be no reason to purchase it. And so instead, let's let 3 people rent the book, quote unquote, rent the book, even though there's no reason for that limitation. And then if other people say, oh, it's going to take 6 months for this book to come off the waiting list and you'll be able to get it, maybe people will go off and buy it on their own. I feel like if they made the deal with the library and they are letting the books be rented out, they should have been okay with this. So they mentioned that the intent was to keep the library up until June 1st. Running through June 30th, but on June 1st, publishers Hachette, Penguin Random House, Wiley, and HarperCollins sued the Internet Archive for copyright violations. The Authors Guild said in March that the Internet Archive was acting as a piracy site that violates authors' rights to their works. We moved up our schedule because last Monday, 4 commercial publishers chose to sue Internet Archives during the global pandemic, and they mentioned that it isn't completely ending the online lending program, but rather switching back to its controlled digital lending model, according to the Post. So it's back to the way it was. I appreciate the effort that they did. I hope this doesn't affect a lot of people out there, but hey, people have a right to earn money off of the content that they produce. I'm not disputing that. It's just, I would be very interested to see the kinds of numbers that we're talking about here. Is the fact that, going back to 10, 20, 50 digital book copies instead of unlimited copies, how much money is that really putting back into the content creators' pockets? How much money is that putting into the publishers' pockets? And really, how much of a difference did this really make? Were people reading more that they couldn't before? I don't know. I think the data that they collected should really be looked at and analyzed and see, was it the right call? At least in hindsight, we should really know if it was the right call or not. So there you go. Now, there's that story number 5, story number 6. Let's go ahead and continue on here. Story number 6, I think, let's do something fun. Obviously, not strictly technology-based, but we like to talk about, non-technology-based stuff from time to time. And hey, it's my home galaxy. So let's go ahead and talk about it. The Milky Way. The Milky Way contains 36 contactable alien civilizations, scientists estimate. I'm not pointing fingers here, but I don't know. It may be some of you guys' fault that we haven't been contacted by the aliens. I'm kidding. But scientists estimate how many alien societies in the Milky Way can send interstellar messages, but just because they can talk does not mean we will hear them. And yeah, when it comes to extraterrestrials, the question becomes the number of stars out there, the number of habitable planets. There's no way that aliens don't exist in some other form on some other planet. It's just a matter of, obviously us humans here, we have invented amazing things like the TV dinner and the remote control and carpeting. I mean, we have done amazing things that, just single cell organisms can't do. So here we are, hoping that someone out there, can talk to us, and potentially every other alien society that we can think of, maybe they're all still microbes, or, as is the topic of many, many, many pop culture movies and television shows and so on and so forth, maybe they're so advanced that, hey, they have no reason to talk to us. We are but the spider in the corner of the room, not hurting anyone at the moment. So there you go. Of course, a spider that can drop nukes on itself, but I digress. Check this one out. This is from Vice, and they're saying that for hundreds of millions of years, Earth has nurtured a spectacular diversity of life forms, including humans, of course, the only species to know how to develop advanced technologies, as far as we know. But here we go. So what's the rest of the galaxy excuse? Are there intelligent aliens, and if so, how many? The answer to how many is about 36. A little more, a little less, we don't know. But that was published in the Journal of the Astrophysical Journal, and this is only a statistical estimate not an announcement that we may have stumbled across 36 civilizations in the galaxy, so there's no need to pledge allegiance to anyone yet. What they're saying there is that there are X number of stars in the Milky Way galaxy. There are X number of habitable planets on average for each of these stars. And so therefore, the chances of us evolving on our planet multiplied by how many possible planets there are in our own galaxy, there you go. Leaves us with about 36. Westby so they also mention, of course, from a statistical perspective, this is one of the most challenging problems in science, since all we can do is attempt to learn from a single data point ourselves, with no possible method for modeling the distribution of the potential population of civilizations across the galaxy. Because that's a good question. How do you account for all the different variables when the only case that we have to study is ourselves? Who knows? They mentioned that the pair's results produced a range of possible SETI populations that currently exist in the Milky Way, with 4 at the low end, 211 as an upper limit, and 36 as the most likely figure. So, depending on what we come up with, there you go. These high numbers may sound like great news for alien enthusiasts, but Westby and Consolis caution that even if their estimate is correct, SETI worlds may be too far away from Earth to establish communication. If 36 contactable civilizations were scattered throughout the galaxy, they would be about 17,000 light years away from our planet on average, a distance that would require at least 34,000 years for two-way communication. Think about that. If you wanted to talk to a planet, or at least if you wanted to let's just say that another planet 17,000 light years away, 17,000 years later, got our first television and radio broadcast. They finally hear us like, oh, hey, check this out. We finally have a ping. Let's reach back out to them. Well, I think the first radio broadcast was issued in, I don't know, when was that? Let's see, first radio broadcast was sent out in 1906. There you go. On December 24th, 1906, the first radio broadcast for entertainment and music. Oh, well, that was for music. Yeah, maybe a little bit later. So, who knows? But 1906 was, let's just say it was 1906. We're about 100 years, about 115 years after. And boy, have we made some advancements in terms of technology when it comes to the early 1900s and today. Our technology has just leaps and bounds improved in just 100 years. Multiply that by, let's see, 170 times. What is our technology going to be, even if we finally do recognize, something else that looks like a signal from a culture? Heck, we've already been on the brink of nuclear disaster multiple times, and that's just been in like 50 years. And now we have to do it for another 17,000 years to not just destroy our own society, not just have some kind of natural event wipe us all out, but we have to continue to exist for another 34,000 years and hopefully have something to say to each other. There you go. So 34,000 years to kind of ping back one way to another. That's so to continue on here. Some of these speculative civilizations may randomly end up closer to Earth, in which case it would be only about 2,000 years if they were on some of the closest planets that we can identify. So, hey, fingers crossed, maybe only 2,000 years. If the average lifetime of civilizations is in fact less than 1,000 years, then their average separation becomes too great to allow any communication between neighbors before the species becomes extinct. The lifetime of civilization in our galaxy is a big unknown within this, and it is by far the most important factor in the SETI equation we developed, as it was for the Drake equation. So there you go. Pretty fun. 36 potential neighbors. Everyone wave hi. Hopefully one day we'll be able to meet them, and we're going to have to do some stuff outside of laws of physics as we know it. Because just waiting for a game of telephone that's going to take 34,000 years is just unfortunately not going to cut it. So let's go ahead and continue on here. Our next story, just a quick update. Microsoft has a new update that I'm sure a lot of you were, downloaded. And here's the thing, just a couple of days ago, again, just as a heads up, it may have given your printers, problems. And Microsoft saying that the latest updates for Windows 10 for Windows 10 gives the platform a security boost, but they unfortunately come with nasty bugs that make printing impossible. They have buggy updates, which is the KB4560960 and the KB4557957, if you're keeping track, on June 9th, and users started experiencing issues as soon as they installed them. They also, so users from around the internet and on forums and things like that, they mentioned that the issues affect various HP, Canon, Panasonic, Brother, and Ricoh printers. Some of the users even reported being unable to print files such as PDFs. Microsoft has published a notice acknowledging the update may render certain printers unable to print, and the tech giant warns users that the print spooler may error or close unexpectedly when attempting to print, and no output will come from the affected printer. Also, it says that the app users are attempting to print from may close unexpectedly. Finally, it's admitting that the issue might also affect software-based printers, for example, printing to PDF. It's so interesting. Microsoft has a huge dominance when it comes to operating systems. And I think sometimes we forget how involved these things are. Obviously, when it comes to operating systems, you have your major underpinnings of how the whole thing works. Drivers, approved drivers, how the software communicates to different types of hardware. But if something just accidentally happens, here we have it. It seems to be an issue between the application, the hardware, the operating system, and it all leads to a malfunctioning printer. The company is still working on a fix and promises to provide more information when it rolls one out. For now, affected users will have to replace the driver or uninstall Windows 10 June updates. Those taking the latter route may want to take note, because obviously a lot of security bug fixes came with this last update. So you will be just that much more vulnerable if you decide to roll back. So be careful. So there's that story. Again, it was pretty quick. Nothing too surprising there. Our next story is going to come from... Our next one is about... It's hard to say. Okay. Let's talk about Elon Musk just for a moment. Starlink. I'm a huge fan of Starlink, what it is that they're trying to accomplish. And, I think satellite internet, if it's possible and it works, then... Oh, sorry. 1 second. Internet is the global system. I have no idea how Alexa decided to jump in on the conversation, but here we are. I think that happened somewhere else. Okay, so other than Alexa trying to get in on the show, shame on you. SpaceX has a month to prove Starlink is worthy of rural broadband funding. So here we are. The question becomes, should a privately funded company get government money from the FCC to build out infrastructure that will allow people to connect to the internet? A lot of other companies take advantage of these of this money that is set aside exactly for that. And, well, hey, maybe they qualify. So the FCC said it has serious doubts that SpaceX will be able to deliver internet service with latency under 100 milliseconds. And really, even at 100 milliseconds, not bad, but it's still a lot. For all the different additive problems you can have on top of just your internet provider's latency, 100 milliseconds is pretty high. And then, of course, you could have things that are much, much, much higher. So they said that that would not only be bad for the users, but means that SpaceX could be at a disadvantage in an auction to distribute $16 billion in federal funds to support rural broadband access. SpaceX strongly disagrees, but it may not be able to prove its case in time. In a report on the Phase 1 auction for the Rural Digital Opportunity Fund, the FCC admitted that Starlink and other low Earth orbit providers have advantages over geostationary satellites that operate at much higher altitudes. However, it's skeptical that latency can be determined by orbital altitude alone, saying it can also be affected by factors such as processing, routing, and transporting traffic to its destination. There you go. SpaceX argued that the FCC's doubts are unfounded and that Starlink will easily clear the Commission's 100 millisecond threshold for low latency services, even including processing time, during unrealistic worst-case scenario, and in fact, the altitudes at 335 to 354 miles compared to 21,000 miles for geostationary satellites. So think about that. 335 miles off the ground compared to almost 22,000 miles for a geostationary system. Pretty interesting. Much, much, much closer. The SpaceX is shooting for a latency below 20 milliseconds in line with cable internet, which would be a huge boon if SpaceX were able to do that. But here's the catch-22. The FCC wrote that it has serious doubts that they will be able to meet the short-form application requirement for bidding on the low-latency tier. In other words, SpaceX may well be right about its latency claims, but without a working network, it won't be able to prove in time to qualify for the maximum funding. That wouldn't mean SpaceX would be completely shut out. It can still qualify for funding outside the low latency tier, but that would reduce the sums it would be eligible to receive. Again, as a private company, not every private company needs to be completely funded with government money. But it would be nice if government money went to serious applications with good promise. And SpaceX seems to be full of promise, really, really short term, so they can't really come up with their claims yet, but there they are. SpaceX currently has 480 satellites, but no consumer services as of yet. It has exactly a month to submit an application for the auction, and the company plans to roll out services in the northern U.S. and Canada this year, but it would likely be too late. So there you go. Maybe the next time there's a $16 billion fund from the federal government to cover this kind of thing. Who knows? But there you go. So there's that one. We have time for one, maybe two more stories. And this is a story that we covered last year, and I completely forgot about it because I thought they were guilty, and that was the end of that. Drones. Drones have been a problem for airports, and this was one of the first stories that came out about that. And check this one out. Gatwick drone arrest. Sussex Police pays out £200,000. British pounds. Yeah. So, and again, the police paid the people they arrested. So you can see where this is going. A police force has paid out about £200,000 over the arrest of a couple falsely accused of causing chaos at the Gatwick airport with a drone. I actually recall covering this. It's crazy. And they said that armed officers stormed the home of Paul and Elaine Gates in December 2018 and held them for 36 hours after the drones caused the airport to close repeatedly. They said that the couple were arrested without charge and sued Sussex Police for wrongful arrest and false imprisonment. And the legal team said that the force had agreed to an out-of-court settlement, so they just wanted it done, over with, and they paid the money, and they both go on their ways. They paid the couple in £55,000 in damages and $145,000 in legal cost. No one has been charged, and police have said that some reported drone sightings may have been Sussex Police own craft. I missed that part. First time I went over this. So over 3 days, the drones were reported in the area. People were concerned, obviously, of terrorist attacks, but even on top of that, they were concerned about the safety of the planes, because if a plane hit them coming in or leaving the airport at high speeds, even a medium-sized drone could cause severe damage and even bring down a larger aircraft. So they were canceling flights all over the place, and it caused a lot of headache. Now, here we are. No one has ever been charged, and police have said that some reported drone sightings may have been Sussex Police's own craft. Boy, when it comes to drones in sensitive areas, I would have thought that one of the questions might have been, is that one of ours? Is that our drone? Wow, it's crazy. 12 armed officers swooped in on the home, and even though they did not possess any drones and had been at work during the reported sightings, so they had an alibi and, of course, no connection to the technology used. In a statement released by their legal team on Sunday, the couple said that we are delighted to have finally received vindication. It has been a very long fight for justice. Sorry about that. But yeah, it's man, the Sussex Police, they're as bad as the U.S. Police sometimes. He added, unfortunately, that when the police carry out their functions on behalf of the public, sometimes innocent people are arrested as part of a necessary police investigation on the public interest. However, we recognize that these things could have been done differently, and as a result, the police have agreed to pay you compensation and legal costs. So, yeah, the force commissioned a thorough independent review of the drone incident last year, and it revealed 96 people of interest were identified, researched, and ruled out during the investigation, and the cost of the operation and subsequent investigation was about £800,000. So about $1 million spent, all for the fact that, hey, it was probably their own drone. That, my friends, is a beautiful waste of taxpayer dollars. So there you go. Okay, that is the end of that story, and now we have time for one more, although not even one more. Let's go ahead and talk about this one real quick. I find this one interesting because Winston Churchill, talking about the UK. Winston Churchill, he had a little missing fit about him. In that, if you tried to Google pictures of Winston Churchill, they were mysteriously disappearing. There you go. They said that Google has explained why search results information about Sir Winston Churchill was missing a photograph for several weeks, and his image was replaced by a gray silhouette. There was concern Google was censoring the image following a controversy over the former PM statue, and Culture Secretary Oliver Dowden contacted the tech giant about it. Google said that the error occurred when it tried to change the photo. His image was missing from the information box, which appeared on the right side of the searcher's name, and also from lists drawn together by Google, which featured him such as British prime ministers. There you go. Google explained that in late April, it received criticism that the photograph which was being used had been selected automatically was of a young and less recognizable Churchill, which if you're looking at the video portion, yeah, I can barely tell who that is, but obviously you can think of this one down here where, bald, a little overweight. There you go. They said that we are aware of an image of Sir Winston Churchill is missing, and they said that this was not purposeful and will be resolved. Essentially, it's a glitch, it's an error. Don't freak out about it. But of course, people are going to freak out about it, and there you go. Its human reviewers determined that the image was indeed not the most representative of the former British PM and blocked it in order for the system to automatically replace it with another. Normally, the image would update quickly. In this case, a bug in our system prevented a new image from updating. As a result, Churchill's entry lacked an image from late April until this weekend. When the issue was brought to our attention, we resolved it soon after. Pretty interesting, pretty funny, considering that they wanted a better picture of Winston Churchill, and instead what they got was, well, a photo that looked nothing like him. In fact, just a gray silhouette of his image. And it took about a month, 2 months, to actually identify and recognize and, bring to a resolution. So speaking of bringing things to resolutions, ladies and gentlemen, the music playing in the background means that we are done for today. I want to thank you so much for tuning in to Computer America. And hey, I hope that you had fun. Tomorrow on the program, we have a correspondent here on the show with us. Which one in particular, I cannot say. But hey, it should be a fun time. And of course, later in the week, Darius Derek Shawnee and Marcel Gagne as well for our All Linux program. So with that being said, thank you so much for tuning in to Computer America. Catch us every day, 4 p.m. to 5 p.m. Eastern, Monday through Friday. And then on top of that, check out computeramerica.com for shows, articles, podcasts, and more. Everyone, have a great day. Thank you so much. Bye, everyone.